Picture this. It's the height of the Cold War, but the CIA decides the ultimate frontier for intelligence gathering isn't some spy satellite. It's actually the human mind. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open a truly fascinating, completely declassified 1983 report on a program called the Gateway Experience. The stakes here were honestly kind of wild. The author of this declassified report, Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonald, defined this entire system as a way to focus brainwave output to alter consciousness and ultimately escape the restrictions of time and space. Yeah, you heard that right. He was seriously evaluating techniques built by the Monroe Institute to see if humans could literally bypass physical reality to gather intelligence. But of course, that begs the ultimate question, doesn't it? How do you actually do that? Like, how do you command your own consciousness to just leave the physical senses behind? Well, today we're stripping away all the mystery. We're going to look at the actual neuroacoustic science and the strict, step-by-step, practical protocols they use to pull this off. So here's our roadmap. First, the CIA's gateway to consciousness. Then, decoding Hemi-Sync and brainwaves. Third, Focus 10, mind awake. Fourth, the step-by-step protocol. 5, tools of the trade. And finally, stabilizing the focus state.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the CIA's gateway to consciousness.
You know, when the military investigates the mind, they absolutely demand a rigorous, objective approach. No mystical baggage allowed. McDonald intentionally structured his investigation using 4 very strict scientific frameworks. He used biomedical inquiry to track physical changes in the body, quantum mechanics to explain the actual nature of human consciousness, and theoretical physics to map out the time-space dimensions being accessed. But most importantly, he leaned heavily on classical physics. Why? Specifically to remove what he called the stigma of an occult connotation. He wanted this whole thing grounded entirely in hard physical science. Moving right along to section 2, decoding Hemi-Sync and brainwaves. So if this isn't magic, what exactly is it? Well, it all comes down to measurable EEG data. See, our brains operate on different frequencies depending on what we're up to. Right now, as you're listening to this, you're likely in beta, alert, analytical, maybe a little stressed. When you close your eyes and just relax, you shift down into alpha. But the target here? That's the theta state, operating right between 4 and 8 hertz. Theta is the zone of deep internal attention, heightened creativity, and that sort of hypnagogic drifting right before you fall asleep. The big challenge, though, is that we naturally struggle to hold on to the state consciously without just entirely dozing off. And here's where it gets mind-blowing. Enter Hemi-Sync, or brainwave entrainment. By playing slightly different audio tones into each ear, usually through stereo headphones, the brain actively tries to reconcile the difference between those sounds. In doing so, it creates this frequency-following response. The audio literally forces the left and right hemispheres of your brain to synchronize their electrical amplitude and drop right down into that highly sought-after theta frequency. It's basically a biohack. Which brings us to section 3, focus 10, mind awake. In the gateway system, they use numbered focus levels to navigate consciousness, and the absolute bedrock, the foundation of the entire process, is focus 10, which they define as mind awake, body asleep. The audio naturally guides your physical body into a profound muscular relaxation that completely mimics deep restorative sleep. But, and here is the fascinating dichotomy, your mind doesn't power down with it. Instead, your consciousness remains fully alert, active, and awake inside this sleeping physical vessel.
To put that into perspective, the neurological difference is just stark. In our standard everyday waking state, which they call C1, we're totally left brain dominant. We're using beta waves as a strict screening mechanism to constantly assess and categorize the physical stimuli around us. But when you drop into focus 10, the hemispheres sync up into theta. All those physical sensory signals from your body, they're essentially bypassed. You are completely awake, but you're no longer limited by what your physical eyes and ears are processing.
So, how do we get there? Section 4, the protocol, step by step. Executing this transition into Focus 10 actually begins with 3 specific mental actions. Step 1 is the energy conversion box. You literally visualize a heavy, sturdy box and mentally place all your physical worries, anxieties, and worldly concerns right inside it, locking them away to isolate your consciousness. Step 2 is resonant tuning. This involves chanting and vocal breathing to match the audio frequencies and gather up your energy. Finally, step 3 is the REB, or resonant energy balloon.
Imagine pulling energy up into your head and exhaling it softly, kind of like blowing out a candle, to create a protective, glowing sphere of energy all around your body before you drop into the focus state. All right, on to section 5, tools of the trade.
Now, once your awareness is safely separated from your sleeping body, what do you actually do? Well, you use mental constructs, like the energy bar tool, or EBT. In the Focus 10 state, practitioners visualize this highly charged, luminous bar of mental energy. It acts basically as a directional vector. You stretch one end of it across space and time to a remote target, and it essentially transduces raw sensory impressions back to your conscious awareness. It's intense. One Reddit practitioner even described charging their EBT so much that it got super hot and made this loud popping noise, literally like a fluorescent tube taking on way too much electricity. And our final section, section 6, stabilizing the focus state. We have to acknowledge that achieving Focus 10 can be tricky, and there's a very real human element to all of this. Take this incredible quote from a practitioner discussing their experience on Reddit. They said, "It felt like fireworks were exploding all over, inside my body." Another, more experienced user calmly replied, "Simply put, that sensation in your body was energy moving." Because as your consciousness dissociates from its physical vehicle, intense somatic and energetic phenomena like that are actually incredibly common. Because of those wild sensations, mastering the practical steps to stabilize Focus 10 is absolutely crucial. For instance, if you get this sudden physical elevator feeling or a sense of straining, it actually means your focus isn't deep enough yet. You're still too attached to your physical body. To succeed and really stabilize, you've got to maintain a passive internal awareness and completely ignore all that analytical chatter coming from your left brain. And just as importantly, to prevent any sort of disorientation, you must ground yourself immediately post-session. Journal your raw data right away before your left brain tries to invent a logical story, and use physical touch or eat some food to firmly pull your awareness back to normal waking reality. But you also have to contend with your own psychology. A writer for Elle magazine who tested out these gateway tapes reported bumping up against what's known as the fear barrier. And we all have this. It's a completely objective self-protection mechanism built right into the brain. Your mind realizes it's leaving familiar physical territory, and it triggers a nervous response just to keep you anchored. Recognizing and calmly pushing past that barrier is totally required if you want to reach those deeper states of expanded awareness. And honestly, that leaves us with a pretty profound realization. We've looked at the CIA's methodology, the measurable theta brainwaves, and those precise step-by-step mental protocols of Focus 10. The science is telling us that our consciousness might not be entirely bound by our physical bodies. So I'm going to leave you with this. If a simple audio frequency can bypass your physical senses and unlock the entire universe within, what else is your mind truly capable of?